Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today, we are taking a look at a very interesting knife. This is the B'yondEDC Garra, designed by Dirk Pinkerton. This is not only a kind of wild-looking knife, but the process of reviewing this knife has been kind of challenging in some ways. And we'll talk about that more later, but this has been a very interesting knife for me to review and try and get my thoughts together on. So I'm really excited to finally bring you guys this video. And speaking of finally bringing you the video, this is the last of the knives that were most recently loaned in by old Tonto guy. He sent a bunch of knives to me over the summer, and we're finally all the way through them. Big shout out to old Tonto guy. Thank you so much, man. Without him, I would never have gotten the opportunity to look at this knife. So if you see him in the comments, which you will, tell him thanks, because it's because of him that I'm bringing you today's content. Let's go ahead and kick this review off. Let's start off with a blade measurement. Kind of tricky to do. So the overall blade length from the scale to the tip of the blade is about 3 1/16. Pretty much on the nose. As for sharpened edge, 3 inches, except we have this massive hawkbill recurve, so in order to measure the actual sharpened edge, I could either like trace out a string and then measure that, or we could do some tricky calculations. We're not going to bother with that. I don't think an officer that pulls you over with this knife is going to do that. He's just going to measure from the scale to the end of the blade. So for legal reasons, this is a 1/16 over 3 inches. So if you're in a 3-inch jurisdiction, probably better pass this one up. Okay, let's go ahead and get on to some size comparisons. First of all, as always, our rats. There's the 1. Here's the 2. Very simple, oh my goodness. Very similar in overall length to the rat 2. A little bit taller and obviously quite differently shaped. That's going to be a recurring theme through this video. Differently shaped. All right. All right, let's bring out our Civivis. There's the Praxis and the Elementum. Again, kind of an Elementum-sized knife in some regards. And let's grab our USA-made comparisons. Oh, wrong PM2. My bad. I mean, I guess I could have used that one, but there's the PM2 and the Benchmade Bug Out. Sweet. Scale's getting dirty on that guy. And what else should we compare him against? I guess let's compare him against, what do I have in my pocket today? Kershaw Mini Iridium. And here's another kind of uniquely shaped knife. Here's the Vosti Nightshade. I think that'll probably do us for size comparisons. I don't think we need to go much further than that. As already mentioned, this is a Dirk Pinkerton design. You can see his maker's mark right there. And I like Dirk Pinkerton. He makes either, like he's known for straight-bladed Wharncliffes or kind of crazy hawkbill recurve knives like this, which are kind of two ends of a spectrum, which is kind of cool. But we have micarta scales, hawkbill blade with VG10 steel liner lock, running on bearings, and the name Garra is actually Spanish for hook or claw. I think we know why he gave it this name, although it's also kind of a slang term in Spanish for like putting a lot of effort into something, or like being passionate about something. So for example, if I wanted to say I put a lot of effort into my videos in Spanish, I could say Pongo mucho Garra en mis videos. Or, like the way that I'm more familiar with it is a phrase that means like to do your best, give it your all, which is dar la gara. So, if someone's trying really hard at something, you might hear it said dar la gara. So, tangent, but there's some of the etymology of this knife. Obviously, this is for the Spanish, meaning claw. Okay, enough of that. Let's go do some cutting. Hey everybody, ready to do some review cutting? I sure am, because today we're cutting with one of the more unique knives I've reviewed this year, and this is the last of the knives loaded in by old Tonto guy. We finally made it through them. This is the B'yondEDC Garra, designed by Dirk Pinkerton. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's start off with that action. So the only means of deployment on this knife is the fuller. And by the way, I apologize for the shadows. It's late in the evening, after work, it's about 6 o'clock. I'm facing west because that to the east is the best view here. So I'm sorry about the shadows and everything. Bear with me. Anyways, that fuller is the only means of deployment. Running on bearings, this thing is redonkulously smooth. That thumb flick is really nice. Reverse flick is excellent. This is one of the best fuller deploying knives you can get. Very intuitive to use. You can slow roll it very easily. Yeah, it just works really, really darn well. And like I said, completely drop shutty. There's no blade play or anything. Great action. Honestly, stupendous action. Let's talk about the ergonomics. The ergos are very, very interesting. The blade and the handle complement each other very, very well. You can see we got kind of this little swoop here. And that means that the blade kind of angles up while dipping down, if that makes sense. Very, very comfortable in hand. We've got kind of thick micarta scales. The jimping up here is excellent. This knife feels locked into my hand. There's really only one grip for this knife, but that's all you need. Good ergos. I really do like the ergonomic lines. There is one major problem with the ergos, though, and I guess we'll go ahead and talk about that right here. Well, guys, we may have just discovered a problem with this little knife. So I'm here in my garage breaking down some cardboard. Great shape of breaking down cardboard, by the way. Look at this. So I was holding it in this hammer grip, getting a lot of power through these cuts. Okay, notice, shaking it, nothing's happening. Squeeze hard. It unlocked in my hand. Now the lockup is solid, but what the problem is just this lock bar cut out. When I had it in this hammer grip and I was squeezing just right, and it's not doing it right now, so you do have to have it just right, so it's not like it's a, always guaranteed to happen type of thing, but that's a little bit spooky. I'm kind of not a fan of that, so that happened, and I decided I wanted to get it on camera and make you guys aware of that. We will see if that presents itself as a more serious issue moving forward in the future. But right now, yeah, that's not something I really like. So we'll see. I know, guys, I'm kind of beating a dead horse about this thing, but look. I mean, you can see it disengage when I tighten my grip. Now, again, if I'm just, kind of holding it lightly, or doing utility cuts and things like that, opening packages, it's going to be fine. The lockup is solid. There's not an issue with the geometry or anything. It's just when you gorilla grip it, because there's so much lock bar access, which is typically a good thing. That's normally a good thing. I love lock bar access, but this huge cutout here, along with the chamfer on this lock bar, means that it's just very easy to disengage it. I mean, I guess if you choke it, let's see. No, okay, let's see if I choke up. I guess if I choke up like this and kind of put my finger more on this shelf right here, it's not that bad, but that's not very comfortable. That's kind of a sharp edge. This right here is a great grip. I mean, the ergos on this knife have been thought out really, really well. The jimping works great. The way the knife curves into my hand is fantastic. But yeah, I don't like that I can disengage that lock with my grip. So it's not like this knife has an unsecure lockup. There's nothing wrong with the lockup. I've spine whacked this knife a bunch. The lockup is just fine. It's just the fact that the lock bar axis and the way the lock bar is chamfered means that when you grip this knife, you can disengage it. And it's not even that hard to do. It's something that I was doing. I can, if I'm being like aware of it. I mean, even that, I tried to not do it, but... And you can see here that it's like completely unlocking. Now, that really only completely unlocks when you're doing like a gorilla grip, breaking down cardboard, but this is a knife that you want to do that with. With a more light grip, you know, it's less likely to happen. This is kind of a, I don't know, it's not a user error thing, but it's a thing that you can correct for if you're aware of it. But it is a safety hazard, and that's probably going to be my biggest negative with this knife for the review. So I really don't like seeing that. It's kind of a weird little problem. It's not unique to this knife. There are other knives I've had that problem with before, but this one kind of takes it to the max. So that's kind of unfortunate, but there we go. Let's talk about the carry. So the knife itself folds up into a pretty nice little package. The clip is reversible, which I love to see. The clip itself is great. It's inset, has button screws, but they don't get in the way too much. Now, I'm not wearing jeans like I normally do. I like to wear jeans for review cutting, but I'm not wearing jeans today, so I apologize. And these pants, they go in very, very nicely, comes out. You know, it's a average weight knife, so you're not going to notice it that much. I did notice the button screws getting hung up a little bit on my jeans, especially thicker jeans, but overall, not bad carry. I really like the clip is reversible. Okay, let's go ahead and cut some stuff. We have a wicked hawkbill blade made out of VG tin, and holy cow, this thing is nasty. This thing is absolutely nasty. This cuts like, oh, no one's business. This thing is, it's wicked. Great, great cutter. The way this blade is shaped means that you can get some really powerful cuts. It's always dragging material into itself. Utility cuts are awesome, except if you have a sticker on the back. Yeah, this thing is very slicey, and it's a beast at breaking down cardboard. All right, let's go ahead and do a rope pull. Ta-da! Excellent at processing rope. We are not, maybe we can do, no, because of the recurve in the blade, there's no point in doing the pushing test, so we're just going to skip it. Let's go ahead and go to the pool noodle. I've been kind of curious on how this is going to go. This is the first time I've reviewed a knife with this kind of blade. 1. Ooh, okay, let's just do it. 2. All right. Okay, so this, we are binding up, and we're binding up pretty severely. Where'd that other piece go? Okay, so I found our pool noodle stuff. Yeah, that is binding up pretty severely. And normally I would say that this is an absolutely unacceptable result. This is absolutely terrible. But in this case, it's not the blade geometry. It's the blade shape. And so I sat here a little bit, and I was looking at what's actually happening here. And it's because if I'm pushing this blade through the pool noodle at mostly an even angle, this and this are cutting before this is. And so that's leading up to the pool noodle kind of pulling away at the sides and then bunching up kind of in the middle, making it very, very hard to cut. So normally this would be a garbage result, but in this case, the geometry of this knife is very, very good. It's just that blade shape is a little bit unique. There we go. Let's go ahead and get back to the table. Alrighty, let's talk about what I'm liking and not liking about this knife. And yeah, I know, you guys already know what one of the big complaints is, but as normal, we're going to start with my likes. I like the overall look and idea of this knife. This is a very striking knife. This is a weird knife. You're not going to see a pocket knife like this all the time, and I love knives like that. There are a plethora of, folding drop point knives. We've got a bunch of these everywhere. They're a dime a dozen, right? So it's always kind of a breath of fresh air when you see something like this. And the other thing I like about this is I would not consider this a karambit because it doesn't have the, little ring at the back. This is just a folding hawkbill, right? But it gives you some of the cool styling of a karambit as well as some of the utility, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, without actually being a karambit. I don't like carrying karambits for EDC because they've got that big ring there and they're just kind of clunky. If you're a self-defense martial artist, master like Doug Marcaida, I understand you probably love karambits, but for most people, it's just kind of a mall ninja thing. This is actually a utilitarian knife. This was built to be an EDC knife, and I appreciate that. Next thing, the ergos are fantastic. This knife has amazing ergos. You can see here, this area is particularly interesting to me because we swoop down and then we go back up. The jimping is done excellently. Very, very grabby jimping like this stuff. This grabs you and holds on. You can see they continue it from the scales and liners onto the blade. And the way this knife fits into your hand, it just works. It's very, very comfortable. There's really only one grip for this knife, but that's all you need. It's really, really good. Feel like I'm close enough to the edge there while still being protected. Again, the jimping is excellent. Maybe it could come out a little bit further, but it's pretty good where it's at. Yeah, just really fantastic ergos. You can tell that this knife was thought out. And those ergos complement the blade. Let's talk about the blade. This is an awesome blade. This thing cuts really, really well. If you're breaking down cardboard, I've said in the past that the best knife for breaking down cardboard is a broad, full flat grind, something kind of like this CJRB Caldera, and that is a great blade shape. But to be honest, hawkbill blades are just as good, if not better. The way that this blade grabs material and allows you to just get incredibly powerful long cuts makes this an excellent tool for breaking down cardboard. This thing eats boxes for breakfast. And it's really, really cool that this is not a large knife, right? It's not a huge knife, but it kind of feels like a big knife when you're breaking down cardboard because it is a little bit, it's hand filling, but also this blade feels like it's 3 inches longer than it actually is. And a lot of that is because of this recurve. We're fitting more sharpened edge on a shorter piece of steel, but the leverage and the fact that it traps that material so well makes you feel like you've got so much edge to work with. You're never going to run out of edge. It's an absolutely fantastic knife for breaking down boxes. Flat grind, VG10. I love VG10. I know it's kind of, like a, kind of been on the back burner recently. Not a whole lot of companies are using VG10. I think it's great. I love that steel, and I like seeing it here, which is really, really cool. And this blade is very, very nice. Next thing, the action on this knife is absolutely ridiculous. So only a fuller deployment, but that fuller works so good. I cannot believe how good this fuller works. Typically, a fuller is like a secondary means of deployment, and so making it your one and only means of deployment can be a little bit of a bold decision, but they nailed it. The edges are nice and sharp. It's big, it's wide. You can thumb flick it. You can reverse flick it. In fact, I think I can probably reverse flick this with every finger. Yep. Yeah, amazing fuller. And look at how drop shutty this is. I mean, that just falls shut. Amazing action. Absolutely amazing action. There's no blade play. We're centered. Great stuff. The pivot is a flathead adjustable pivot, as you can see right there on both sides. I like seeing that. Means you can adjust your pivot on the go, on the run, with basically anything, coin or something, screwdriver if you got one with you, which most people I think should. I like seeing that. The pocket clip is reversible with a filler tab. I love filler tabs. Very, very cool. I'm glad that they made this knife reversible. This is a very lefty-friendly knife. So there you go. They're keeping an eye out for the lefties. The clip itself is inset, which I like to see. Access to the lock bar is great. We'll talk about that more here in a little bit. But yeah, overall, this is a very, very interesting little knife, and it's doing a lot right. It is doing a whole lot right. Okay, let's go ahead and get into some of my complaints. And before we get to the big one, let's knock out some small ones. T6 hardware, rather not see it, but there it is. I do wish that these screws were flat. It's not a huge deal, but on thicker pants, it is a little bit of an issue. The clip itself is good. This is a fine clip, but I do wish that the screws were flat. And this fuller, and actually the jimping in general, kind of sharp. They are crud catchers. As you can see here, you're going to build up some crud in there. Just clean your knife. I mean, you should be doing that anyways, right? Just take care of your tool. Be a normal person. Be a smart user of tools. Clean it up. You should be fine. I need to clean this up, and I will clean it up before I send it back to old Tonto guy. And the plunge grind could be better. We see there, we've got a couple sharpenings, but there's the plunge grind. It could have been better. Okay, let's go ahead and get on to the elephant in the room. And of course that is the fact that you can unlock this knife if you squeeze it wrong. One of the reasons why it took me so long to review this knife is because while I was bringing down cardboard at my garage, the first time that happened, it kind of spooked me a little bit. I was not expecting that. I was going through a big cut, and then I was coming back, and that blade just closed on me. And so I stopped carrying this knife for a long time. I put it aside, and then I really only brought it out when I decided, I've got to get this review done. And so I started carrying it a lot more and, just being more cognizant, more careful about that issue. But that issue is a big issue. That's a huge issue, and it's a glaring flaw. A glaring flaw. I don't like seeing that. That's a safety hazard. That is definitely a safety hazard. And this is an interesting issue because the lockup geometry is fine. I've been spine whacking this knife so much, but the lockup is fine. It's just the fact that you have a really big cutout here, and I think more than anything, it's the way that this lock bar is jimped. You've got a very narrow section here and then kind of a wider chamfer right here. And it doesn't happen all the time. Like right now, I'm squeezing pretty hard, and it's solid, but it happens consistently, and it happens enough that it's an issue. And again, this happened to me during use, and so it's not something that I can just ignore. It's a glaring issue. It's a big, big problem. Safety hazards are a big problem with knives. Knives are tools, and just like any tool, the best tool is a safe tool. If the tool is a danger to the user, it's not a good tool. And it kills me that this knife has that problem because everything else about this knife I really, really enjoy. But that right there, that's a big stinker of a problem. My final thoughts on this knife, my overall thoughts, are kind of complicated. Because if it wasn't for that one issue, I would love this knife. But that one issue is a pretty big issue, right? As far as like the price and value on this knife, these go for $66 on Blade HQ. And as far as the materials and build quality goes, I think that's a great price. VG10, micarta, I don't really have a problem with that price there. Reviewing this knife was very fun. This is one of my favorite reviews that I filmed in a while because this knife challenged me as a reviewer. Not a lot of knives do that. Most knives that I review are kind of exactly what I was expecting them to be. Or not most, but a lot of knives, right? And there's a lot of knives out there that I don't even want to review because I don't think that they're interesting, right? A lot of knives, even though I'm committed to carrying and using every single knife that I review, and every once in a while there are surprises, most knives, from a user perspective, are kind of in the same tiers. There's not a whole lot that surprises me. There's not a whole lot that challenges me. This knife challenged me because not only am I kind of having to fight against the, ooh, I love this design, but that one big issue, but also this challenged me because it's a different kind of knife to use. This was my first time reviewing a knife with this blade shape. And this was the first time that I'd ever seriously carried one, a hawkbill blade. And my first couple of days of carrying this knife, I was like, this is cool, but I don't think anyone, should carry a hawkbill blade. It's not all that versatile and things like that. And I stand by the fact that this is not a very versatile blade shape. Drop points, spear points are the most versatile blade shape in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that this is bad. And actually, the more I carry this, the more I realize that for most people's average EDC, this is probably exactly what you want. This tip is excellent. You can use this tip for all kinds of things. Utility cuts, opening packages, blister packs. This thing is a beast at opening blister packs. You poke that hook in there and just drag. It's awesome. This thing is an actual excellent EDC tool. And then you have this big recurve for if you're going to be breaking down boxes. For a lot of urban EDC, I think that's going to be just fine. However, this thing is going to suck at food prep. This thing is going to suck at crunching down on zip ties and things. It's going to be great at rope. This thing obviously has some weaknesses, but for what most people in 2024 are doing with their knives, I think this is actually really, really good. This is a great option. I enjoyed carrying it. I enjoyed using it. Until I had that issue. I hate that issue. It's very, very bad. And like I said, I think it's something that you can work around if you're aware of it. But the fact that it happens with such ease and took me completely by surprise solidifies in my mind that it is a serious flaw. And it's because of that I'm going to have to say that I do not recommend the B'yondEDC Garra. Or Garra, whatever. Oh, it hurts me. This one hurts me, guys. Oh, by the way, speaking of Garra, Garra is also kind of fish. I found that out. Anyways, this one hurts, guys. This one really does hurt. Now, one thing I do want to bring up with this issue before we completely close everything down is that this is not the only knife that I've noticed this on. This is my Civivi Vexor. This is a discontinued Civivi knife, but it's one that I absolutely love. This is an excellent, excellent knife. But I've noticed that when you squeeze, you start to kind of depress the lock a little bit. However, you can see here, if I shake the blade, we've got a little bit of rattle, but no rattle if I shake it. So it kind of has that same little issue, but it is nowhere near as bad as this knife. It's not the same level at all. So I do like this knife. I recommend this knife. But this one, unfortunately, I think is just unsafe. I love the design, though. This is the first B'yondEDC I've ever checked out. I'm impressed with their build quality and their action and things like that. But I'm gonna say pass on this one, guys, and that hurts me. This is, I really enjoy this knife. I really, really love this knife, but I don't think I can recommend it because of that safety issue. So that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and a big shout out to my channel members at the cowboy level right here, especially Old Tonto Guy for loaning this knife in. Really, really appreciate everything that they do for the channel. If you want to become a channel member and get access to exclusive perks, there's a button down below. For everyone else, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.